Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Calm in the Chaos. I'm Valerie Carmel, licensed therapist.
Hi, I'm Michele Badie, program manager and the creator of Keep Your Stride.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our final episode of 2025.
Happy holidays.
No, right? It's happy holidays, everyone. I hope you guys are safe and spending time with who you want to spend time with and really taking care of yourselves during this time. So, we're going to do a little bit of a review. We'll do a bit of a reflective exercise for today's episode and really want to go back and really kind of look over the past year, what worked, what didn't, and how do we prepare ourselves for 2026. So I'll start with you, Michele. Looking back over the year, what systems, decisions, practices felt like they were really supportive for you throughout this year?
That's the sit back in the chair moment.
All right, take your time. Take your time.
I think for me, it comes down to just being mindful of, I might sound cliche because our whole focus is mental health, but really being mindful of my mental health throughout my interactions, be it personal or personal. When I say personal, how it impacts me personally when managing a project, not my personal life, but how it impacts me when managing a project. That's pretty key. And that has really reminded me to lead with empathy, check in on someone, like, hey, how are you? Things of that nature. That's been super critical for me. And I think it's really helped me with relationship building, right? It's helped me. I mean, we all have our intense moments. So, I'm not saying every day is a kumbaya moment. No, but I will say that when you're navigating intensity, when you lead with empathy, it just helps you have conversations that are meaningful and direct. So, it makes me reflect upon our last episode when you were sharing how through your tone, you will level set, right? You'll take a breath or you'll level set. You'll speak slowly, intentionally. So I feel like elements of that are very helpful. And that shows up in different ways, right? That shows up in different ways. Not, for you, it's talking slowly. For me, it's just like sitting and letting someone process their thoughts. I think that's essential too. Allowing someone time to process their thoughts and we not jump to conclusions, or not conclusions, but assumptions. We know what someone's going to say.
I would agree there. I definitely would agree there. I like that.
What about you?
Okay, this is going to seem like really silly. But as I'm thinking about the answer to this question, the game changer for me this year, I would say getting my swing chair.
Okay.
I know that seems like, what are you talking about? So my egg chair has become the signal for me that my day is done. At the end of the day, when I'm done seeing patients, planning meetings, whatever it is, I am now going to go outside, grab my iPad, I'm going to grab my phone, grab me one of my millions of cups, like today, right? One of my millions of cups. I'm going to go sit in my swing chair and chill. I don't know. It has become, over the past few months since I've got my swing chair, the thing that I do almost, I would say pretty much every single day. Sometimes I start with my day in it. Sometimes I'll do it during lunch, but it is by far how I end my day because it gives me, all the sciencey stuff, right? So the swinging, the rhythmic activity of being in the swing chair is really calming and soothing. I have a couple lights set out there, but usually I'm just in darkness because I like the dark. And so it's usually probably the only time of the day after like my day is officially started that I'm able to just be in silence. And that has been such a like a great reset for the next part of the day, which is like maybe I'm making dinner. Usually I'm not, but spending time with my son or whatever that is. But it allows me to kind of recognize, okay, I'm done working. I'm actually going to turn off and just be Valerie rather than Valerie the therapist or Valerie the entrepreneur or Valerie ... So my swing chair has been a game changer. So happy I spent that money.
I love that for you.
It's fantastic.
Love that for you. So, as you were just talking about decompressing, what signals you toward the end of the day? So we're at the end of the year, right? And we're blessed and we're fortunate to make it to the end of the year, to see another holiday season, to see another year that we get to reflect upon what we've accomplished. Speaking of that, I watched this amazing podcast episode with Mel Robbins. Cannot think the last one, but it's about a year on reflection. And she was sharing how her protocol is for the end of the year is to look at all the, and I'm not sure if I'm capturing right, but this was my takeaway. She looks at all the photos and from her year and which ones, signal accomplishment, whatever they might signal, right? And use that as a point of reflection. And when she's level setting or getting ready for what she's going to accomplish in the new year, she uses that as part of her guide. I mean, there are some questions as well, but she uses the photos that she has done. But I want to ask you this, like emotionally, what patterns do you see most often at the end of the year? Like fatigue, disappointment, relief? Like what do you witness from your perspective when working with project management professionals?
Oh, I would say definitely relief. That whatever projects they were working on are like likely coming to an end at that period of time. Fatigue, but also sometimes just more stress. Because I think in just the nature of the last part of the year, people are off, some people are shutting down, some people are revving up. Like then you throw in the holidays. The holidays can be a mix of emotions because of, the very consistent period annually that occurs. And so over time, we just accumulate a lot of different experiences that are tied to this particular season. And so our memories can often kind of, connect to, losses, both personal and professional, complex family dynamics that you're now having to navigate. And so there's usually an uptick in stressors. Actually, usually in my practice, I will see an uptick of referrals starting in October. Like for me, this is my busiest season because people are prepping for Thanksgiving and having to, again, engage in family dynamics and then the holidays. And usually by October, especially once what's the thing that we do with the time? Crap. Why is the word eluding me right now? We turn back fall back when we turn our clocks back. And so
daylight savings time.
Yeah, daylight savings. Thank you. And so the hours of the day are shorter. People oftentimes can struggle with seasonal affective disorder where they notice that there's a dip in their mood. So oftentimes that's like where I see a lot of my project managers kind of be in a state of just multitude of complex emotions that almost seem to cancel themselves out. So they're feeling low, but also feeling that level of pressure to kind of get to the finish line associated with the end of the year. And ultimately, the biggest thing that I notice is fatigue. Like people are just exhausted, running on fumes, just trying to make it to the finish line. Yeah. But that feels that, but that's for me as like outside looking in. Like from your perspective, how does that tend to kind of show up, especially when it comes to maybe projects that were maybe successful, but still kind of created some drain in behind the scenes.
I love that. We have a couple of comments coming in that just telling us hello. So hello.
Oh, hi.
Yep, someone just coming in saying hello. So hi everyone, thanks for joining us. You know, what comes to mind with me when you were just sharing that is, you know, at the end of the year, you know, we as project management professionals, we run retrospectives throughout the year, right? So I find that the end of the year is a great time for personal retrospectives. You know, acknowledge your wins, acknowledge your lessons, but also, you know, where you realize you extended yourself grace. Like I find that coming up a lot in the conversations I have with peers. I'm like, yes, you know, like we are championing change. We're drivers of transformation and change. And yes, maybe sometimes our stakeholders that we work with, our teams, it could be challenging. Like we can get frustrated or, you know, all the things that come with, you know, leading a project. But one thing I think is that when you're doing the retrospectives, you can see where all the growth has come in, like where maybe you were from 6 months ago or 3 months ago. That might not be where you are today. Like your mindset is different. You're stronger in your confidence, right? And so you move different when your confidence is stronger and you're more knowledgeable. You know, you have a lot of lessons learned. And so one thing, it's like you might not find where you are today is, you know, fill in the blank, but I would say compare it to where you were 6 months ago.
I love that. I love that. And I love the like personal retros because I do think taking that time out for that self-reflection can really be such a really empowering place because by nature, I think we typically focus on all the things that we missed and all the ways that we could do things better, which is good. But I also think we shouldn't discredit the wins, whether they were big or small, and the progress that is being made, because sometimes change oftentimes is extremely incremental. And so you may not have noticed the improvements that you have experienced maybe from January to February or from one quarter to the next. But when you're taking a full year into consideration, there's a lot more time that you're able to really identify different points throughout that journey of, you know, wins and progress that you may have just kind of overlooked in the midst of just trying to live life and get through all the things.
For sure. So Val, what happens when people do close the year without emotional processing it? How does that impact project management professionals?
One, I think there's this concept of lag, right? Like there's just so much residual stuff that kind of can bleed into the next season, right? If we're talking about it from the concept of like attention, right? When we are when we're shifting contexts, the reason you put a kind of like moment of pause in between shifting from one task to the next is because you want to really manage the residuals from the previous activity to keep it from kind of bleeding into the next. And the same is true when we're talking about doing, you know, personal retros. By taking that time out to engage in emotional processing of events, you're able to kind of work through those things and mitigate a lot of the residuals moving into your next phase. So if you had a really challenging experience, maybe in quarter 3 or even quarter 4, you want to make sure going into quarter 1 of 2026 that you have effectively kind of worked through that, identified the challenges, you know, repaired whatever, you know, try to make whatever repairs you could, whether it was between you and a colleague or you and another leader. You want to kind of work through those things so that you are not starting off the new year still carrying a lot of the baggage from the previous year.
For sure. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, like you don't want to do that to yourself. It's just that there's already, as project managers, like you guys hold so much from so many different entities and stakeholders and roles and projects that without giving yourself that intentional time to reflect and kind of process through them and kind of sift through some of those experiences and identify which things are going to be useful to you that you can maybe implement or build upon for the next year, or maybe revamp and change, then you're kind of just starting off just carrying all of this baggage that you really don't know what to do with. So I really think that that can be such a helpful opportunity to really kind of engage in that.
So how can organizations encourage reflection without turning into another performance review?
You know, I think one, you can gamify it, right? You can make it lighthearted and fun, whereas you can do it as part of a team meeting and people kind of come up with things that they actually felt like that worked really well for them, as well as areas that maybe they want to actively change. I also think one of the things that I do with different teams is I have them create a win wall. And so what they do is that as a team or individually, depending on what you're working on, you actually go through and identify particular wins. And that way you're able to kind of see, were there any particular patterns or elements that seem to be consistent throughout the year? So were there things that consistently brought you joy or had you empowered or feeling good about working on something? Whether that could have been a type of a project, maybe it was one of the people on the project that you really connect with and you just really like their work ethic and you enjoy partnering with them. It could, and also the things that maybe kind of like burned you out a little bit, whether that was things not being as organized as you would like, or maybe there is some challenges within communication that you want to kind of optimize and improve. So I think you can definitely make it somewhat lighthearted so it doesn't feel like, oh, here are all the things you did right and all the things you did wrong, and we're keeping track of that. The goal of this is for it to be a personal activity for people to really understand and take more agency and even sovereignty over their career paths, right? And so I think by being able to really look at those elements, you're able to take on that ownership of that information and then decide what you want to do with it.
I agree with that. And I also have found it to be helpful in my own project management work and program management work, because I feel like I battle between the two. Like my community stuff, I'm a project manager, but my work is a program manager. So I definitely swing between the two. And one thing that I found is that when leadership includes reflection points as part of, to your point, during a one-on-one, or not necessarily during a team meeting, not necessarily one-on-one, but during a team meeting specifically, and you prompt reflection that is not centered around metrics, right? That's like a check-in. It does lay the groundwork. So like what you were just sharing, it just resonated with me. So because it's true, then it doesn't seem foreign, right? Because there's all these little steps throughout the year or months or however you want to define it, quarters, where those conversations have taken place. And it's like, how it often, when we're storytellers, right?
Yeah.
Project management, program management professionals, we're storytellers. And so one thing we're always doing is we're with them, what's in it for me, right? We're always reminding our stakeholders or who we're working with what's in it for them, right? So it helps us remember what's in it for us, right? Our work that's impacting us. I just love the way you just shared it, because it just made me think of that. It's like, yeah, I've experienced that in just different professional settings, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, because it's, I am definitely a person who can sometimes get really into the weeds of things. I get like tunnel vision especially when I'm working on something. I often kind of give it the example of like people swimming underwater. So like you swimming and all you see is what's in front of you until you come up for air, and then you realize, oh, I'm in a different location than where I started from. And sometimes it takes that moment to just pause in order to really kind of take in everything and everything that's happening around you and the fullness of what that means. And I think that that's such a great way of really trying to incorporate it, not just from, oh, I'm personally doing this, but as leaders, being really intentional about initiating the conversation and really modeling that behavior as well.
For sure. So let's talk a little bit about unresolved setbacks, because I feel like
Yes.
that will come up a bit, right? Especially with project management professionals. I know in previous episodes we talked about project grief. There's career grief. I definitely think there's project grief, right? Even though we make it to the finish line, sometimes it is like we got the scars. Like, we have scars,
Yeah,
and
you won.
it can definitely take
You
a
lost a
toll.
couple battles, but won the war.
Oof, that's a whole nother podcast episode. But, when unresolved setbacks tend to resurface as, as anxiety, right? So how do we put some salve on that, right? Put some salve on that, try to help it heal so we don't take that into the new year. As I say, it prevents us from our slip hanging, right? So like your grandmother used to just fix her slip, wiggle
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something. My grandma was like that. Anyway,
Get it.
so anxiety.
I think from an anxiety standpoint, the first thing we got to do is name it, right? You got to call a thing a thing. So if you are feeling a type of way about one of the people you worked with, be honest with yourself about that being the thing that is impacting you. If you didn't like a particular outcome, or maybe you didn't feel very connected to the project that you worked on, right? Especially if you're working on something that maybe does not necessarily fully align with maybe your values or your area of expertise, or something that you felt really kind of invested or interested in. Say that, right? Be real with yourself as to what is contributing to how you are feeling. Because until you can actually name the thing, you can't actually address it, right? I always say you cannot address what you don't acknowledge. And so by starting with that first, then we can work through, okay, these are the things that contributed to how I felt. Validating how you feel. You don't need anybody's cosign. Nobody needs to understand it, agree with it, whatever. You don't need any of those things. Your feelings are your own, and you're allowed to feel that way. But then I think the next thing is, okay, so what actually was the real problem that led to how we felt? One of the things I think people really struggle with is that they want to solve for the feeling and not for the problem. The feeling is just data that's kind of built from the actual problem. So if you're upset, if you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're anxious, that is your body communicating this data back to you. But that's not the thing you actually need to address. You need to address what led to the actual feeling. And in order to do that, you need to be honest with yourself about how you got here. Then from there, you can actually begin to problem solve a little bit more. But you got to be real with yourself as to what actively created the emotional state that you're experiencing.
I find myself asking people all the time, are you having an honest conversation with yourself? I ask myself that. I'm like, are you having an honest conversation with yourself?
Yeah, sometimes we got to call ourselves out.
For sure. So this leads me to based off what you just shared, it makes me want to break down the difference between a lesson learned and a lingering self-criticism. I feel like you touched upon it, but I want us to dig in a little bit more on that. A lesson learned, in my opinion, one thing that you have to say is call a thing, right? So call a thing, good, bad, indifferent. And then in my humble opinion, the lingering self-criticism is torture, self-torment.
Absolutely.
Like if you miss something, like if you felt like, oh my gosh, I should have done this. Why didn't I know that? I should have known better. But had you experienced that before? In that specific situation? These are honest things that we sometimes have to remind ourselves of this, right? Because we're like, I've been doing this for, and I know the fill in the blank, all the fill in the blanks where you felt like you should have known and you should have interacted or reacted differently. It's a thing. But please, therapists, help as project management professionals.
No, I think you did great there. I mean, especially with the concept of self-torment, right? Because, and that word in and of itself, I think it has, in a lot of ways, creates so much internal distress. And that word is should, right? When you start the sentence with should, what you are effectively saying is that there was a perfect, optimal, preferred way that whatever the situation was supposed to go, and your response was wrong. That's essentially what you are communicating when you say, when you tell yourself, I should. Oh, I should have known better, which means whatever it is that you did, it was wrong. And constantly replaying those shoulds often creates a whole lot of internal distress. And so one of the things I like to remind people is that, okay, maybe at the end of the day, you've never done this day before. It's a new day. You didn't have any crystal ball to tell you all the things that were going to happen in this particular moment. So the idea that you should have known a thing doesn't actually provide you with any actual information. It doesn't actually provide you with any, ways to repair and move forward. It's much better to just accept that I made a choice that didn't necessarily work out the way that I would have liked or the way that I planned for it. And what can I do differently? It allows you to just hold both things in place. This is how I handled it. And there were alternatives that maybe in that moment I didn't consider. And how can I learn from the gap between what I did and what my other options were? How do I bridge that gap a little bit better?
That's like a sit back in the chair moment. Inhale, exhale.
Yeah, because that should gets us in trouble a lot. I should have done this. I should not have done that. I should have known this. I should have gone here. You could literally should yourself into rocking into the fetal position if you're not careful. So don't do it.
Yeah, we don't want that. So from a project management perspective, it makes me think of just interacting with people, not necessarily deliverables. Of course, that does apply to deliverables, execution, following the process. But I also think that it applies to when we take a moment to think about how we interact with people and our impact on the stakeholders and teams that we work with. And I'm also going to say with how we handle ourselves in moments that might have been great or might have need an opportunity for growth. I feel that definitely applies to a project management professional beyond the deliverables. It also comes down to how we interact with people, just in basic chat, not necessarily it has to be in communication. We always want to make sure, in my humble opinion, we always want to make sure that we are someone that others want to work with.
Absolutely. And so with that being the background kind of expectation, so how do you feel like leaders can effectively kind of model these healthier responses to some of these setbacks or challenges as the year kind of comes to a close and people are wrapping things up?
Well, I think from our last episode, when we talked about the power of a pause, implementation of that, all of this is stepping stones. All of this is all of this is stepping stones. So yeah, I think it's the power of the pause. I think it's, the self retrospective that we spoke of earlier in this episode. And I just think it's also just overall self-awareness.
My jam.
Just overall self-awareness.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, it seems like on YouTube, we're having some technical difficulties that we will definitely research Some people are having viewing issues, so we will definitely research that and get it rectified. But thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you so much.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. So we're sorry for that, but thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. Yeah.
Definitely.
So I know one thing that you talk about, and I just want us to end the year talking about this, is our nervous system. So what kind of rituals or pauses help our nervous system reset from a demanding year? Because this year, I think every year is like, oh, this year it was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
But then I think this year it's been a roller coaster. So let's say about 2026. But yeah, this year's been a roller coaster too, of great things and awareness and, what are we meant to do in life? And are we really doing our thing? And, is this our jam? So what is from a project management perspective, what is your perspective on that?
I feel like when we're coming to the, trying to close out the year, especially in preparing our nervous system to reset itself, right? You've kind of gone through multiple stages of the year being, a little elevated, right? Stress rises. Body has to like mobilize and get ready to activate and solve all the problems and put out all the fires. One of the best things you can do for your nervous system is actually be in nature. Be outside. Because
that's our thing.
Like by nature, humans are extremely biophilic. We like, trees, mountains, flowers, birds, whatever your thing is, water, like find something and be next to it, right? Like go touch some grass, like get out of the four walls of your office, of your home office, right? Regardless of what that looks like, and be in nature.
It's cold right now in a lot of places. So what does that look like?
So like if that's, true, because I live in Florida and I forget that that's a real thing in people's world. Honestly, plants, you can put on videos that have nature backgrounds. Honey, I love me some David Attenborough talking about, plants and nature, and, you can watch Shark Week on Discovery. It doesn't really matter. You just want to give yourself an opportunity to really connect with something outside of your day-to-day hustle and bustle, all the chaos. That's number one. So if you can't get into nature, then you need to move. And that movement can be something really intense, like maybe you want to, take a spin class or something like that. But it also can be really chill. You can dance, you can sit in a rocking chair, you can stretch, you can do yoga. And on top of all of that, the other thing you can do is rest. We as a community tend to not get enough sleep. So giving yourself time and space to sleep and rest. And the difference between resting is that you're not trying to plan the next 6 months of your life as you're sitting on a chair. No, you're actually just giving your brain a break. Do something frivolous, happy, creative, draw, color, paint. You want to give your brain, as well as you want to give your brain and your body an opportunity to feel safe again. Because when you're super stressed, your body thinks you're under attack and it's constantly in a state of mobilization and trying to respond. In order to prep your nervous system so that it can recover fully, you need to give it the opposite of what you just did, which is calmness, peace, and relaxation.
So this is my question. It leads me to think of realignment, right? Mm-hmm. So as project management professionals, we are planners. We are planners. It's in our blood. We are planners. We will sit. I mean, you pick at me all the time for it. You're like, this is not a plan. I'm like, but it is. Let me tell you why. So I just want to say, as we look ahead, what does realignment really mean after a full year of change?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, for me,
and we can't be surface. New beginnings.
No,
Not a Hallmark card. Like
none of that. None of that. I think
none of that.
I think realignment is really about understanding what sparks your joy for real, not the thing that's cute and like everybody's doing. No. Like the thing that gets you excited again. Because when we are in the midst of in the trenches doing all the hard work, sometimes we forget why we're doing this work in the first place. We become a little bit disconnected from the overall reason and motivation of why you entered into this career path in the first place. I know, even as being, in being a therapist, right? I'm constantly the receptacle of a lot of people's dramas and traumas and stressors. And that can get really heavy. And I have to constantly be reconnected with what brought me to the field in the first place. And that is how you consistently allow yourself to realign, because we are constantly evolving. And maybe what brought you joy in the beginning of 2025 is not the same thing that brings you joy at the end of 2025. And that's okay, right? I think we get frustrated with ourselves if we're not still feeling things the exact same way. And that's just a natural part of life, right? You may have wanted a pony when you were 6, but if you're at the 16-year-old, what they want, they don't want a pony, probably want a car, right? So we kind of evolve in just naturally. And I think creating that space of asking yourself, what is now sparking joy for you? What is getting you interested? What is getting you excited to do the work? And then be able to create more realignment by incorporating more of those elements into 2026.
So for me, project managers, not only are we planners, we're also creatives. We're creative with timelines. We're creative with planning. We're creative with building relationships. We're creative. So in there, whether one realizes it or not, that's an art form. So you're an artist, right? So as an artist, I am encouraging my fellow project managers, professionals, program management professionals, for us to tap into the artist within. What does that look like? Creativity. We are creative in all things. Our communication, creating buy-in, calming the storms. Like, we are creative. So from my perspective, I feel it's tapping, realignment includes tapping into your creativity, tapping into the artist within. Hey, I'm a plant lover. And when you and I meet, when we're in the same space, we're usually outside. So I get it. Yeah, we're outside. So yes, I love that. So do you have any advice for anyone about feeling pressure to start the new year perfectly?
One, perfect doesn't exist. The only thing perfect about perfect is its failure rate. So you should just start off intentionally. And I think the best way to do that is to just be curious, right? I think if you are trying to automatically get to a perfect ending, you low-key are kind of already setting up yourself for a lot of frustration, because perfect doesn't exist. So I think it's about being kind of reframing that thought process of making sure that you just are showing up intentionally, like actually live your life in your body and not so much in your head.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What advice would I give someone to feel pressure to start the new year perfectly? I mean, my standard true, but I got a little hype right there, is extend grace to yourself. Like,
absolutely. That's your jam right there.
It is my jam. And I think sometimes it's a battle, internal battle within me. Like, okay, why are you responding this way? And as you go into the new year, yes, we are always implementing a process, right? We're following a process, but sometimes it's our first time implementing a process that's tried and true that we know by heart into a situation we've never been in before. And that can be stressful. So I would say that. And then is there one thing that we feel that listeners should intentionally leave behind this year?
Self-abandonment.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
Expand on that one.
Yeah, I feel like oftentimes we give up the things, we give up what we need, what we prefer, what we desire for, the external pressures that we are faced with. And over time, you end up really learning how to silence yourself, and you don't get really good with speaking up for yourself. And the first thing to do is to stop self-abandoning. If you feel a way, be real with yourself about that's how you feel. If you need something, be real about that's what you need. I think that that's probably the best thing that we all could give up for 2025 is that sense of self-abandonment.
So I will piggyback that and add on lack of prioritization.
Yes.
They go hand in hand.
But always thinking like a project manager.
It's who I love it.
I know you can. I know. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for another one. Thank you for everyone who logged in today, who sent us hellos through Facebook and YouTube, and we will check out the technical difficulties that was on YouTube. So thanks for bringing that to our attention again. And thanks for joining us. This has been a year. We have grown. Just Val and I have grown with this sharing this information with you monthly. Some amazing opportunities have come from us following something that's on our heart to do is, have people keep their stride by, being mindful of your mental health, specifically in the project management community. And I just want to wish anyone who's watching or catching the replay, I hope that you have a good holiday season, whatever that is for you.
Absolutely. I definitely want to piggyback on that because I don't think either one of us thought this was going to resonate so much with so many different people, and really just super appreciative of anyone who catches the replay, sends us comments, likes. I mean, all of those things are really affirming, and we really want to continue to share this passion for people functioning well, doing their best, great performance day in and day out, but feeling good while they do it. So I just really want to tell everybody, thank you so much for joining us for Calm the Chaos of 2025. And we will be here again in 2026.
And I also want to thank those media, like Project Management Institute,
absolutely,
Canvas, Rebel, those platforms that have recognized our work and what we do. Just thank you. Thank you for finding value in what we do and helping expand its reach. So we just want to make sure we end the new year with those special thanks as well for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. See you in 2026.
Yes, Happy New Year. We'll save our Happy New Year. Happy holidays, and we'll get the Happy New Year in January.
Yeah, happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah, happy holidays. Thanks.